Okay, this is the introductory shiur to להגדיל Cohanim. We make Cohanim great. We honor Cohanim. Okay, so this is is a very interesting shiur. It's going to be split into two parts, but each part is its own unit. In other words, you don't need to know the first to know the second. And you can watch just this part and you'll be fine. But the two together obviously gives us a greater greater understanding of the entire area. Okay, so let's see what we're talking about. The pasuk says, "Kedoshim yu Eloheim v'lo yichalu Hashem Eloheim, ki es ishe Hashem lachem Eloheim he makrivim v'hayu kodesh. Isha zona v'chala lo yikachu v'isha grusha meisha lo yikachu ki kadosh lo kav." Okay, so it's about Cohanim. So Cohanim are kadosh to Hashem. They're sanctified to God, and we can't desecrate the Cohanim. They're not allowed to marry a previously married woman, and she can't be divorced, and she couldn't have been with another man before, because the Cohanim are set as sacred to God. V'kidashto ki es lechem elokecha hu makriv kodesh yelecha ki kadosh ani Hashem mekadshchem. Right, and they are we have to be mekadesh them, kidashto. Okay, so that's the mitzvah. It says Rashi, kadosh yelecha, that they should be sanctified. No bo kedusha. You have to treat them with kedusha, with sanctity. Leftoach rishon b'chol davar, right? So they get to anytime there's something that's opening up or starting, they get to start first. Levarach rishon besuda, and they get to say the bracha first when it comes to benching, leading the zimun. They say the bracha. They should make hamotzi as follows. The Rambam here in source number 3 says v'atam after he gives the bread, after he offers the bread of God, kadosh yelecha, he is kadosh. Ki al yodo ani mekadesh es kulchem, because by way of the Cohen, I am mekadesh all of you. Umasra shchinasa b'kadeshchem, and I manifest my shchina on you, my divine presence on you. Okay. The Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvos says as follows. He says, "A mitzvah halam beis, the 32nd mitzvah. He should sivanu lechaved zar Aaron u'nasam aramim v'nasim medregasam madrega kodemes v'rishona v'afilu yimnu also lo nishmalhem." So the 32nd mitzvah is to give honor to the descendants of Aaron, and to raise them up and to put them on a different level as everybody else. They should precede everybody else. And even if they say no, we don't want this kavod, we don't listen to them. This is really a way of honoring God after He has chosen them to be to offer the karbanot. Since He gives the bread, He's offering the karbanos, so He is who we are mekadesh. Uva ferish, and this is the Gemara says, the hidasha l'chol davar shel kedusha. Any area of kedusha, they have the rights to. L'ftoach rishon, l'varach rishon, l'lital maniyaf rishon. Even to get the first piece when you're serving at the table, and there are various pieces of meat, let's say, that are going around the table, they get to choose first. V'lashon sifra gam kein v'kidashto karcho. The halachic medrash also says that we are mekadesh, we sanctify them against their will. This is a command that we have to honor them. It's not about the Cohen doesn't have a choice in the matter. And this is even somebody who has a blemish. Some Cohanim can't serve in the Beis Hamikdash because they have a physical deformity. So even if they have a physical deformity, we still give them kadot. We still give them kedusha. We treat them special. So we don't say that since this guy couldn't give karbanos anyway, or he's not giving karbanos anyway, so then we don't treat them with kedusha. No, we do. Okay, and we see that this is all over the place. Okay, we find this halacha. Okay, so two questions here that we have. Okay, first question is, why is the fact that we honor them bal korcho, right? The Rambam mentions it twice, that even if they say no thank you, we give them cover anyway. Why is that such a big deal? That's question number one. Question number two the Rambam wrote that you have to honor a blemish Cohen, right? That just because he's ein royal hakriv lechem elkav, that just because he's not able to give the karbanos doesn't mean that we don't honor him, okay? Because hazer nichba kul, the Rambam wrote, right here, the entire all the descendants are honored, okay? Like the whole class of Cohanim, not particular Cohanim. But the Ramban that we saw, right? We saw this Ramban in source number 3 says that the mitzvah is to honor the Cohen. Why? Shehu makriv, right? Let's see if we get here. Shehu makriv lechem lokecha, because he gives the karbanos. So is the Rambam and the Ramban disagreeing? They're saying that the Rambam says it doesn't make a difference if he has a blemish and he can still give it because it doesn't make a difference if he can give. And the Ramban says the source of it is because he can give a korban. So that's the question is, are they disagreeing? Okay, this is the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah. We just saw the Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvos. Here's the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah. He says in source number 5, l'kadesh hakohen la'avodah. So this is his introduction to the halachos, and he says the mitzvah is to sanctify the Cohanim for their avodah. Okay, so that's okay. Then the Rambam says in the halachos, he says the Cohanim huvdu michla halavim avodas hakarbanos. The Cohanim are separated for the avodah to do the karbanos. Shenemar v'yavdil Aaron lahakdisho kodesh kodashim. Mitzvah sasehi lahavdil hakohanim. The mitzvah is to separate lahavdil, like Havdalah, to separate the Cohanim. Ulachacham, and to be mekadesh them. Lahachiyam, the korban, and to get them like prepared for the korban. Shenemar v'kidashto ki eslechem lokecha hu markarit. Okay, and then the Rambam says that tzarich kol adam Yisrael linhog behem kavod. Every single Jew has to treat them with kavod. Harbe, a lot of kavod, a lot of great amount of kavod. And to have them go first in any area of kedusha. Liftach with Torah Rishon, to open up the Torah Rishon. Right, when there's a kriyas Torah, they get to go first. Levarach Rishon, to make a bracha, they get to go first. If it's benching, Luito Maniyafa Rishon, and they get to eat first. Okay, so the Rambam discusses this mitzvah. He has a lot of different adjectives that he uses. Right, he had what did he have? He had in the Sefer Mitzvos, he had let's look. In Sefer Mitzvos, he says to honor. Okay, and then here he has l'kadesh, right? L'kadesh a Cohen, and he has mechabed the Cohanim. Right here he has is we have to give them kavod. So what exactly are we supposed to do? Right? There's all these adjectives. Mechabed, lahavdil, mekadesh, right? What are all these different things? So what's the actual mitzvah? And how is giving them priority in the order, the method of doing this mitzvah? How is that the fulfillment of the mitzvah? Okay, that is those are our two questions here. Okay, the Magen Amram. Okay, so the Magen Amram says like this. He says, "L'ftach rishon," this is source number 8. The kriyas Torah of Rosh, kasav lios Rosh hamidaber b'chol kibbutz imidaber ulidrosh tchila. Now, let's say you have like different people speaking in a forum or any type of thing. So then the Cohen gets to go first, even even when it comes to talking or giving over to Divrei Torah, the Cohen goes first. Okay, right? In any type of meeting, right? Let's imagine you have like a Jewish company, and you have a meeting of like a department of a team, and everybody's going to speak. So the Cohen actually gets to speak first. But tzarich liyon, so the Magen Amram then says, he says that there's a lot of we have to figure this out. Lama ein nizhar nachshav l'hakdim hakohen l'chol, right? Hanachmila v'yesh nizhar b'zeh me'achash midaraisa hein v'esher de'inanu b'kiyim b'yichusei kohanim. So he says we don't see people are very careful about this. How many of you, when you have guests over, are serving the Cohanim first, right? It would cut the challah. Do you look around to see who the Cohen is? Right? We don't see people are very careful about this anymore. And he says it's very strange because it's a Torah command. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs. So how come we're not careful about it? He says it could be because nowadays we're not so sure who's really a Cohen and who's not. So it could be that's like a real giving the benefit of the doubt here. Okay, the Sefer Chinuch says the kavod zeh nasa lahem kisharoim l'kach. This is only when the Cohen is worthy of this honor. But if the guy sins all the time, so he doesn't get kavod. Why would we give him kavod? Shemamzer talmid chacham kodem Kohen Gadol. So we see that even a mamzer talmid chacham comes before the Kohen Gadol, who, if the Kohen Gadol is an ignoramus, so he has to be yes, right. So the question is, how does the chinuch? I mean, it sounds okay what the chinuch is saying, but our question here is, this is our fifth question: how does the chinuch understand this mitzvah if it doesn't apply to a Cohen who's a sinner? How does that work, right? How does he understand the mitzvah? We didn't see anything like that in the psukim. We didn't see anything there. So where does the chinuch get this from? How does he understand it? Okay. The Ran says as follows. The Ran says, "Va'afal gav dekar dekidashto gav Kohen Gadol chsivine v'alfina the Kohen hedjo nami roi shia mekudesh misra." So he says that even though the psukim that we just read, and a lot of people look at this, they look at this Ran and they say that's not actually what it says, but it seems to be that the psukim, according to the Ran's understanding at least, apply to the Kohen Gadol. So he says, how do we go from the Kohen Gadol to a regular Kohen? How did that work? So that's right. So if that's true in the Ran's reading, right? Because no matter what we have to say, it's in the Ran's reading. So within the mindset of the Ran, why would it talk about a mitzvah that applies to all Cohanim, but talk about it within the context of a Kohen Gadol? And that's our sixth question. Okay, these Gemaras and this Mishnah Gemara, these are really fundamental to our understanding. We're spending most of our time here. The Mishnah says, there's a whole category of things that the rabbis instituted out of what we call darchei shalom in order to keep the peace. Okay, so one of the things that we have is Kohen Kar Rishon, V'acharav Levi, V'acharav Yisrael, V'bnei darchei shalom. So everybody fights over who gets the first aliyah in Shalom. I want the first aliyah. I'm supposed to get the first aliyah. I'm the greatest person in the room. Give me the first aliyah. So we say, no, it's not how it works. What we're going to do is we're going to have an order. The Kohen's going to go first. The Levi's going to go second. By the time we get to the third aliyah, no one cares anymore. So Yisrael gets the third aliyah, and that keeps the peace. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, Menane Milei. Where do we get this from? That we know all this stuff, right? So he says, Amar of Masna. So we're going to see 4 different opinions as to where we get this idea from. Okay, so Ramasa says, "V'yichtav Moshe, Davar Krav V'yichtav Moshe Satar Hazos V'yinel Cohanim b'nei Levi." Right. So right. So he says right. He says that it says that you write the Torah and you give it to Cohanim who are Leviim, right? Because Cohanim all come from the tribe of Levi. So the Gemara asks, "To Ano lo yadana the Cohanim b'nei Levi." You know what we need the Torah to tell us that all Cohanim are Leviim. We know that. So why does it say Levi? El Kohen Berisha the Hadar Levi, because it teaches us, says Ramasan, that a Kohen comes first and then the Levi. Okay, so that's his source, is this pasuk. Rabbi Yitzchak Nachla says, Me'acha, we get it from here. V'nikshu Kohanim b'nei Levi. Right, there's a pasuk that says that the Kohanim, the sons of Levi. Atu anan lo yadinu the Kohanim b'nei Levi. So same question, what we didn't know that the Kohanim were from the tribe of Levi. El Kohen Berisha the Hadar Levi. So same type of thing. He says, I know the Kohen goes first, but he has a different pasuk that he learns it from. Okay. Then we have Rav Ashi Amar, right? So here's Rav Ashi, and he says, Mehacha, B'nei Amram, Aaron, Moshe, we have the Aaron like Disho Kodesh Kodashim, right? So it says the sons of Amram, right? Aaron and Moshe were brothers, and the Aaron was separated for Kodesh Kodashim. Okay, so that's what Rav Ashi's. And then you have Rav Chia Bar Abba Amar Mehacha. He says, V'kidashto, right? That happens to be the pasuk that all the Rishonim were quoting, V'kidashto, L'chol Davar Shem Kedusha. All things of Kedusha. Okay, so he says, Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, Kedash L'chol Davar Shem Kedusha, Liftoach Rishon, Levarach Rishon, Lito Mana Yafa Rishon. Okay, so that's the Gemara. Okay. Okay, so we have to explain all 4 opinions, the machlokes here. Okay, that's key. That's what we have to understand, right? What's the machlokes as to the source of this halacha that the Cohen gets the first aliyah. Okay. The Torah says as follows. Excuse me. Kasav Adoni Avi Rosh. That's how. Okay, this is what my father Rosh says. Va'af im ba Cohen l'chala kavod l'rabo or l'misha gadol mimenu shikarishon bebeis v'hei harshus biyado. Okay, so he says that if a Cohen wants to give kavod to his rebbe, okay, if a Cohen wants to give kavod to his rebbe, so then he can, or somebody greater than him. Okay, so you could say, listen, I don't want the first aliyah. My Rebbe's sitting there, give it to him, even if the Rebbe's Yisrael. That's on Monday and Thursday. Harshus biyado, he's allowed to on Monday and Thursday. But on Shabbos, Yom Tovim, the Shchichei Rabbim, the Beis HaKnesses, when a lot of people are in shul in those days, ain't Harshus biyado, when he can't. The little less leads to it because we don't want fights to develop when there's a lot of people in shul. This is not the Rosh's idea. This comes from a Gemara. Rav Huna decree b'chane b'shavasas yom tovim mishum demuflug b'chachma. But wait, hold on a second. Rav Huna read on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and he wasn't a Cohen. So they said, oh, because he was a giant in Torah, everybody recognized him. The filu Rabbi Ami v'Rabasi kahani chashivi dar Yisrael kafi leil mashmi dvarshim hu gadol muflug shachol akros mifnei Cohen. Right. So he says that. So the Torah says we learn from this Rosh. It seems to be that if you are the gadol hador, or somebody that's recognized by everybody as a great talmid chacham, and your wisdom is spread out throughout the world, everybody knows about you. Even on Shabbos, you can take the aliyah before a Cohen. Okay. Rav Amram Kasav, Rav Amram disagrees, and he says, Kol hechadika Cohen, leis le rishus Yisrael mikre kamei. Whenever there's a Cohen there, it doesn't make a difference how great that next person is. The Cohen goes first. I feel who nasi should be Israel. Even if he's the nasi, the president of Israel, he can't. That even, and we're going to get into this another time, but right. So even a ignoramus Cohen goes before the gadol hador. Okay. What we want to know here, we're going to deal with the balance between talmid chacham and Cohen in the next year. But here we want to know what's the debate between the Rosh and Rav Amram going whether a Cohen can give his spot away. That's our question here. And what does Rav Nutrai add by saying that even in ignoramus Cohen can go first, okay, before talmid chacham. Okay. So then we say like this. Then the Beis Yosef explains. Okay, so the Beis Yosef on this tour says a Perish Rashi lo shano dechol kavod l'rabo ela besuda. The only time we see this mitzvah applies is during a meal. Right, that the Cohen can give kavod to his rebbe, right, is only during a meal. But when it comes to Kriyas Torah, Beis Knesses, ein Cohen chol kavod l'Levi Yisrael. Right, a Cohen cannot tell a Levi to go before him, and a Levi can't tell Yisrael to go before him. Because we're not going to allow fights to develop. Well, because somebody's going to stand up and go, I should read first, I'm great. Right? It says, and that's why I say you can't. Okay, you can't read them. Okay. Did I not include enough here? No. Okay, good. All right, so our question is, right, what's the difference here? This is the 10th question. What's the difference between giving up the kavod during Kriyas Torah and during benching? We're looking conceptually, not practically. Okay, this is the next source number 15. Rabbeinu HaGadol Mahari Abuhav Kasav. Okay, so this is what Mari Abuhav says. Shemibnei shebelashon hara sheyesh makom lomar shu sover she'amuflag boso makom makom sacherim. About im eino muflag b'chachma ela boso makom lo makom sacherim lo yikra. So in the Rosh's opinion, where the Rosh had said that somebody can take an aliyah of talmid chacham whose knowledge and wisdom is well known and widespread throughout the world, he can take an aliyah before a Cohen, but nobody else can. So he says, so that's really, he's highlighting the point, that's only if every single person in that place and all over the world knows about him. But if not, then he can't take it. It can't just be like your regular run-of-the-mill local Orthodox rabbi. It's got to be one of somebody who everybody knows is a big talmid chacham. So we have to ask the question: what's the difference between a chacham that's well known in his town that, according to the Mari Abuhav, right, he can go before a Cohen, but if he's only known in his town, he can't. So what's the difference in that between the two? Okay, the Beis Yosef says as follows. Okay, so he says, how could you say that someone has a gadol hador reads before the Cohen? To Rav Amram, Rav Nutrai, lav machal poskim binu, gdolei chachmei Yisrael. Right? The Rav Amram and Rav Nutrai, who said that he can't go before, and they knew their stuff. How come they disagreed? V'gam ki Rabbeinu devasrahu maybe devreim. V'gam ki minhag hapashut hayom hu k'devreim. Shafil nasi Yisrael in accordance to the Cohen. He says, well, I don't understand. He says, Rav Amram and Rav Nutrai, they knew this idea, and yet they still disagreed. And the Torah brought them in his writings. So they disagree with the Rosh that the talmid chacham can go first. And not only that, he says, look around. No one does this. No one gives the talmid chacham the first aliyah before a Cohen. The Cohen always gets first. Doesn't make a difference who's sitting in shul. where this is how it is. This is how the halacha is today. He says, therefore, he says, no, Rav Amram Natarai, when they said that this can't happen, it's only when the Cohen is makbid. The Cohen gets it. They say, oh, listen, Joe Cohen, listen, we're going to give this big rabbi's here. He's on vacation. He's here in our shul. We're going to give him the first aliyah. And he says, no, well, I'm not I'm the Cohen, so I get to go first, right? So he says that's when their law applies that no matter who it is, the Cohen goes first. Because then you're going to have fights. If the Cohen says, okay, I don't mind, I'm mochel, I forgive my honor, it's okay. So he says, especially to a giant in Torah who everybody listens to, Shaper Dami, that's fine. And that's why Rav Huna would read first, because he was somebody that all the Cohanim listened to. And the Cohanim would forgive their kavod for it. Right? So he says, Ein Rosh Hashanah Yom Tovim Afili Ma'isha Hu Rabbi Shekoin Zohar the Hainu Ditznam Ibnei Darchei Shalom Koin. But if it's in Shul and it's on a Shabbos and in Yom Tov, when there's so many people there, that's too risky. We're going to have fights. So no. Okay. So the question is, how is the Kohen allowed to be mochel on his kavod if it's to prevent issues of Darchei Shalom? Right? This is very confusing. How that's allowed? How the Kohen's allowed to do it? Okay. These next sources are sources. These are psukim that we're going to use to answer the question. So the first one says, if you remember, Rav Masna was our first opinion. This is the psukim that he quoted as to where we get the idea that the Kohen goes first. So he says that Moshe wrote the Torah, and he gave it to the Cohanim, the sons of Leviim, and they carried the ark, the Aron, with all the scholars. So the Keter Yonatan, in the translation, he says, Moshe Kohanim. And he says that Moshe gave the Torah and he handed it, he passed it on, the Torah, to the Cohanim, who were from the Shevet of Levi, who then carried the Aron. Okay, so I'm going to point out the difference between the pasuk says V'yitna, he gave, and Masra means like he passed down, like Masorah, like tradition. Okay, the Ibn Ezra says V'yitna Cohanim b'nei Levi, Sheheim Moriat Torah, because they are the teachers of the Torah. Okay. Then the next psukim, V'nikshul Kohanim b'nei Levi. This was the next opinion. Ki bam bachar Hashem, because they were the ones chosen by God. L'shar so to serve God, u'levarach b'shem Hashem, and to bless everybody with the name of God. V'al PMU kol riv v'kol nega. And on their decisions comes all halachic decisions. The next was Bnei Amram, Aaron, and Moshe, the Avdel, Aaron, Adisho, Kodesh Kodashim, Hu, Banav, right? So this pasuk that says they are Kodesh Kodashim. Okay, and the Ramban. If you remember, this is the first Rambam that we saw, that it was because that the reason why we give kavod to them is so that they are kadosh to Hashem. Because it's on my hands, meaning God's hands, that they are sanctified. And I give my shechina to them. Okay, that is the introductory shiur. I believe and be'ezras Hashem. See you on Sunday for shiur.